want the latest and top stories, go to SarahACarter.com. That's SarahACarter.com. You can also check out the podcast page and download The Sarah Carter Show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Guys, we've got a big story today. I will be joined by Jason Miller. Obviously, you remember him. He was a former Trump communications official and now the founder of GETTR. It's the new social media site that basically is not suspending or shadow banning people for holding the wrong political views. We're going to talk to him about everything that is controversial about GETTR and why it is so difficult to have other mediums to compete against Twitter, as well as other social media platforms like Facebook, Amazon, and the major control that these behemoth organizations have over our society. Please follow and subscribe. Get all your links at SarahACarter.com. That is SarahACarter.com. And while you're there, I want you to sign up for our email list so you don't get shadow banned. Folks, let's not get shadow banned. Folks, now is a critical time to be vigilant in the freedom of our defense. You know, I've been talking about AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. And I truly, truly believe in this organization because we need organizations that are going to fight for conservative values, organizations that you believe in, that believe in you. And that makes the difference. AMAC welcomes everyone who cares about the future of our great republic to join and stand together against a progressive agenda. There is strength and numbers, right? Folks, there is strength in numbers. And together we can become one clear, resounding voice to Washington, D.C. By joining AMAC, you're taking the very first steps to saving the America you love. AMAC offers an alternative to just about every other thing that other group, AARP, offers, but without the liberal agenda. I stand with AMAC, and I hope that you will too. I encourage you to join today at amac.us/Carter. That's amac.us/Carter. The benefits of membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Carter. Guys, I don't know if you've seen the news, but it's really actually a terrible situation. The NYPD officer that we were all praying for would survive, the one that was basically shot this past weekend, has died after that horrible Harlem ambush. He was the second cop shot in Harlem. He died Tuesday night after remaining on life support, so his organs could be recovered to help others live. How about that? Right? That's really, really unbelievable. He was thinking about himself even after death. He was willing to give himself. And just the idea that so many of our officers have lost their lives, that there's this movement by lawmakers and especially the left, the very radical leftist Democrats that have pushed for years now to defund the police, to disrespect our law enforcement officers, to stand up to the law enforcement officers, calling them, I think, every name in the book. What would we do without these law enforcement officers that are willing to put their lives at risk, their young lives? Jason Rivera, his partner that died, was only 22. Wilbert Mora was only 27 years old. Only 27 years old. Gone. Their lives gone, right? Rivera died Friday evening. Mora was still trying to fight for his life. He was shot in the head and had a bullet lodged in his brain. He underwent several surgeries, according to the New York Post, and it just wasn't enough to save his life. But it looks like Mora's kidneys, listen to this, may go to his niece, who needs a kidney transplant, you know? This is pretty gut-wrenching story. Anyways, I just thought you would all want to be updated on that because it's so important that we not forget the kind of sacrifices that our law enforcement officials make, both our federal law enforcement officials and our local law enforcement officials. And no, I'm not talking about those senior officials that we had to deal with during the Trump administration that were weaponizing everything in the system to target a sitting U.S. president. We'll talk to Jason Miller about that too, because he understood a lot of what was going on there. But we're talking about officers who put their lives on the line, men and women of the police force, of our border patrol, of our Immigration and Customs Enforcement Office, of our drug enforcement agency, the DEA, who every single day, our CIA put their lives out on the line, our 17 intelligence agencies, and then our law enforcement agencies who put their lives on the line every single day to protect our nation. I don't know if you've seen this story yet. You go to SaraCarter.com. You can read it there. You can also read it on Hot Air. But December, by far, was the worst on record for illegal immigrant apprehensions on the southern border. I could have told you that. I saw it every single day that I was down there. It was absolutely stunning. The DHS finally released a CBP report that we were all trying to get, even Bill Malusian over at Fox News, my colleague, a great reporter who is on the ground all the time on the southern border, working really hard. He has the best hair, by the way, in all of television. I'm just going to have to throw it out there because Bill, but beyond that, he is a great journalist. And he was fighting the DHS every single day, trying to get this report. I was trying to get this report. This was a delayed report, and it shows that apprehensions blew by the previous record for December's over by 100,000. Over by 100,000. I want you to think about this. What is happening in our country? And I just posted on my Twitter account. You guys can find it there. Go to my Twitter account, Sara Carter DC. That's at Sara Carter DC on Twitter and on GETTR. I am now on GETTR at Sara A. Carter. At Sara A. Carter on GETTR. I've posted both of those. I had some breaking news today, actually. A source of mine in the Yuma sector basically told me that according to the people on the ground that were working operations last night, they centralized processing center. This is the area where they have all of the people that they're picking up that are crossing illegally, where they kind of process them before they send them free into our country. They emptied it out. They emptied out thousands of people out of this processing center. And why? Because DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was arriving today. And they didn't want people inside that processing center. They didn't want to make it look like a crisis. So they do what they always do. They lie to you. They lie to me. They pretend. They lie to their own agents that put their lives on the line every day. They don't mind lying, and they ask them to cover up in the lie, which I believe is criminal. They ask them to cover up in the lie. So according to my sources, the Yuma sector's centralized processing center was emptied of people overnight before DHS Secretary Mayorkas could arrive. There were 2 brazen load-ups as well along the Colorado River that went unanswered due to no agent response. So basically what happened, there were a bunch of people coming across. There were these, what they call brazen load-ups. That means they're doing it right in front of your face, right? Sending people across the river, loading them up and taking them out. And guess what? No agents arrived to pick them up. Why? My sources asked why. If the center was empty, if the central processing center was empty and there was no one there, they had more than enough space. So why was no agent available to respond? Because again, they are lying to you. They are lying to me. They are making their own law enforcement officers live a lie. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. That's what this Biden administration is doing. It is all smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. I had my exclusive report last night on Fox News with Sean Hannity. I had a source that spoke anonymously to me about what was going on in the Border Patrol and in the Department of Homeland Security, and what he believed was an absolute attempt by the Biden administration to continue making matters worse. That means that, like I have said before, it is not about bad policy. It's about policy that they want chaos at the border. So their entire policy is to create chaos. It is to open the floodgates. Now you have to ask yourself why. You know, it's like the Matrix, guys. We know the reality. Do you want to continue to live in the fantasy world of their press releases? Or do you want to live in the reality of what is really happening along the U.S. border? And you have to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening? Here's a clip from Fox News. This is Bill Melugion's story. We've talked about this over and over again. I'm telling you, there is no, sending them back. It's all about catch and release. It doesn't matter if they're families. It doesn't matter if they're kids. It doesn't matter if they're single adult males. And Bill was able to talk to some of them at a bus stop as they were being sent away. And by the way, during this time, after they had basically processed them out and were putting them on buses to let them go wherever the heck they wanted in the United States, and these were mostly men, they had barricaded the front of the building, the parking garage area they were using, where they were going to let them go, with like a black tarp so that you couldn't see what they were doing, because the government knows that they are committing a crime. They really are. They're just going against the law. They don't even care what the Supreme Court says. They're just doing whatever they want. We couldn't do that, but they're just letting people go. I want you to take a listen to this. This is on Twitter.
If we can dump out and take this live right now, we had another group of migrants just show up right here. As you can see, these are all single adult men. They were just dropped off on an ICE bus here. As you can see, dozens of them. They're just leaving this NGO directly across the street here. You can see these manila folders they're holding. These are the travel documents they received from the NGO. They are now walking over to the bus station, which is across the street from where we are right now. But you're looking at what we are. These are all single adult men. There are no families. There are no children in this group. Some of them you can see have ankle monitors on. That is what's known as ATD, alternatives to detention. So rather than being in an ICE jail or detention facility, they'll put these ankle monitors on them and release them into the community in hopes that they will show up for future court hearings or proceedings. But we've been watching that exact same thing happening for the last 2 hours now. These ICE buses will pull up behind us. They'll drop everyone off at this parking garage where you can see they have black tarps set up because they don't want anybody to see what's going on in there. They'll go to the NGO and then they get released into the community, either to the bus station or to the airport about 20 minutes away.
So there you have it. So Bill Melusion is showing this to you. I was on a plane with a man with an ankle bracelet. The same thing. He was being sent away. And by the way, they just cut him off. They don't even care. There's ways around that. There's ways around the ankle bracelet. We don't have enough people, enough law enforcement to go after these folks. Once they're out in the country, they're out and they're free. I spoke with a senior, I could say, Border Patrol official about this. They spoke anonymously to me because of fear of retribution. And it was on Sean Hannity last night. Listen to what he had to say.
We sign up to protect this border, to protect this nation. And we're not being allowed to do that. But there's another aspect of this, and it's the suffering that we see directly because of these policies. We see things that no human should see ever in their lives. We see death, we see suffering, and when this suffering is being brought on by the very same people that feign so much concern about that population, okay, it makes it even worse. These policies, like I said, they're successful for them because this is what they wanted from the get-go.
Folks, this is what our Border Patrol agents, our supervisors on the front lines deal with every day. They are trying to get the truth out to the American public. They want you to know that they are doing their job, that they want to do their job, that they want to stop the bad guys, but they can't do it if the federal government ties their hands behind their back. They just can't do it. I have a lot coming up with Jason Miller. We're going to be talking to him everything about GETTR, about what the heck happened with Joe Rogan, about what's going on with the future of social media platforms and how can GETTR overcome all of the obstacles that we saw with Parler and everything else. Guys, listen to this. I want to talk to you about MyPillow. And I don't want you to forget how important MyPillow is. Why? Because Mike Lindell's a true American patriot, and because he has a company where everything is made here in the United States. It means something. It's the reason why I love the fact that MyPillow sponsors this show. And right now they are offering 40% off the new My Slippers. I'm so excited about this. They've spent 2 years in development to ensure the highest quality and comfort with this My Slipper, which I've given to my daughter, which I've given to my husband, which I have for myself. And there are a variety of colors and styles. You can either get it in moccasin or slip-on. For a limited time, Mike is offering 40% off his new My Slipper. So I want you to go to mypillow.com. I want you to click on the radio listeners square, enter the promo code Carter, or call 1-800-685-7221. While you're there, take advantage of the deep discounts on all MyPillow mattress toppers and MyPillow towel sets. So you can only save 40% though on the My Slippers with the promo code Carter. That's CARTER. Call 1-800-685-7221 or visit mypillow.com. And without any further delay, I've got Jason Miller, former communications official for President Trump and the founder of GETTR. I'm so excited to have you on, Jason. It's been a long time since I've seen you. You're former communications director for President Trump. You are now the founder, the CEO of GETTR. I joined GETTR this week. I'm like so mad I didn't join it even earlier. I let everyone on Twitter know too. I just let everybody on Twitter know. So thank you so much. I know you're a busy man, but thank you so much for being a part of this show.
No, great to be here. And you've done some great work on the investigative journalism front. And it's great to see you on Hannity and all these big things. So I'm glad you have time for a little small person like me, is considering all the big TV hits you've been doing lately.
Hey, no way. I'm talking, you have probably one, and you probably don't even realize this. I don't know, maybe you do. One of the most important jobs in America right now, because it is about our ability to speak freely, to have thought, to support the First Amendment, to not be censored by these behemoth organizations that have literally stranglehold the American people, who on good faith we joined. We joined Twitter, we joined Facebook on good faith that we would have platforms to speak freely. And all of a sudden, Jason, they are controlling everything. They're controlling the narrative. They're controlling our voices. They're ostracizing, they're eliminating. Did you ever think this would happen?
No, not at all. And I'm not someone who has a traditional background in either being on the front lines of the free speech movement or someone who's had a long tech background, nor have I ever viewed myself as being a radical by any stretch. Certainly, I'm not someone who you look at and say, this is the radical from Central Casting. But where I found myself at this radical tip of the spear is the simple fact that I want to make sure people can express themselves freely. That I want to make sure that people are treated the same, whether they're coming at it from the left or they're coming at it from the right. And then third, I want to make sure that people actually have that self-destiny when it comes to whether their expression or their freedom of financial investment, things of that nature, and they're not being manipulated by the algorithm that is given to us by big tech. And I never knew that these things would make me such an outlier or such a radical, but sadly, that's where we are in society right now.
It is sad. It is sad. It's really devastating. I think for so many people watching what happened in the last election, our inability to speak freely. I mean, I know I'm constantly concerned about what is being posted. Am I going to lose my Twitter? Are they going to suspend me? Are they going to, I've gotten warnings. I've had Facebook pull stuff down. And I mean, honestly, it's straight up news stories. There are some straight up news stories on there, and they just remove them. And then we have to fight it. And then they say they're sorry, but we know they did it on purpose. And we know they have these crazy fact checkers that are just, set out with algorithms or whatever else to just target certain conservatives. Is that the reason why you decided to start GETTR? I mean, was this like you woke up one morning or you talked to President Trump, whatever, and you said, we got to do something different?
Yeah, and I really had the opportunity to be at the front row, to have a front seat to watch all this unfold in 2020. And so whether it be in the first part of the year where we saw people being sentenced to digital jail for daring to say something as radical as the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, which, spoiler alert, it did. Even the Washington Post and other outlets have had to backtrack. And we don't know if it was manufactured there or just some sloppy worker traipsed it out. But the bottom line is the virus came from a lab in Wuhan. End of story. No one debates that anymore. It's understood. And the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop scandal was very real. And the fact that we would have had that greater level of insight into the foreign business dealings of the Biden family if that had been out there and thoroughly vetted and discussed in advance of the election. Now look where we find ourselves. We're at the precipice of war with Russia and Ukraine. It's a matter of days, if not weeks, until China takes over Taiwan and then threatens everyone else in the South China Sea. And so we're really at a dangerous place in American society right now, simply because of the political discrimination we've seen over the last year or two.
Isn't that incredible? And I think, for everybody out there who's listening to Jason, I know this has got to be going through your mind too. is that this decision, right, to not know the facts, to not know the truth, has not only endangered our nation and the stability, the founding principles of our nation, but the entire world. Jason, this is what I never got, and I still don't understand. Had this been Donald Trump Jr. or Eric or Ivanka getting boatloads of money from the Chinese, from the Ukrainians, from the Russians, I mean, mind you, not even the laptop, just the information being out there, that would have been the front page, super investigative report from the New York Times and the Washington Post. They would have destroyed the president. They literally used lies to destroy him. They weaponized a system against this president. And then they covered up the truth to allow kind of a senile older man into office that someone else is controlling on puppet strings. It's a different world.
Well, it really is. And by the way, has Adam Schiff ever apologized for saying that the Hunter Biden laptop scandal was Russian disinformation? Of course not, because he's left of center. But when we look at Biden, and again, I've been doing politics and campaigns for a long time. Obviously, was able to help President Trump in both of his first two presidential races. And I'll be with him in race number 3 if he decides to go and pull the trigger and go in 2024. But the fact of the matter is that the way that all of every dire warning that President Trump put out there about what could happen under Joe Biden has come true. Now, I don't think any of us thought that it would all happen in the first year, that it would all happen at the same time. This is a really dangerous place in human history right now. Again, looking at whether it's what's happening with Russia, China, the hyperinflation, the southern border, which you have done a fantastic job of covering everything going on. I mean, now we're threatening world war effectively if Ukraine's borders are violated. Meanwhile, we have people come through the tune of about 2 million a year through our southern border, and basically, I mean, do we even have a southern border? It's basically just kind of this flex zone where, depending if maybe on occasion they slow someone down to ask if they're being eco-friendly, but certainly not to check their papers or to go and give them a COVID test or anything of that nature. But it's really dangerous, everything that's happening to the U.S. at once. All of this could have been averted if simply big tech and big media hadn't colluded to get Joe Biden into office.
And that's it. And I think that's the frightening thing. You know, when I first started, and tell me if this has happened to you too, you know, when you look at GETTR, when you look at what's happening with big tech, you know, when I first started looking into the story many, many years ago, the, Trump-Russia saga, the exposing what happened even with John Solomon, with Sean Hannity, getting it out there. I mean, there were people that walked up to me and said, this just can't be true. There is no way that the FBI would have weaponized the system, or they didn't even use that word then. We started using it, but, that would work against to take down a president. I said, hey, I'm just going to let the facts lead me to where it needs to go. And once we get to those facts, all of us did that. We're going to expose it, whatever it is. And we expose that. It's so hard to believe that actually happened. But what's even harder to believe is that these organizations, these companies are operating like fascists. They're not operating to protect us from crime and criminals. They're operating like a fascist government in an effort to quell our ability to speak to one another. Do you find that so hard to believe that you can't even get the truth out because it is being controlled and monitored by these organizations? I say they're global. I don't even see them as American. These people rely on China and everybody else,
Well, it is really hard to believe because at a certain point here, these big tech social media platforms, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, they've made a decision to move away from trying to share this freedom of expression or spread democracy or any ideal that maybe they had early on, or trying to even help just connect people at a basic level. To now they're into world forming. They have a viewpoint for what they think the world should look like. Let's take YouTube, for example. Again, putting aside the merits and the science behind climate change, I think it's safe to say that there's hot debate on both sides of the issue. That's probably a safe way to say it. But now for YouTube to throw up warnings, to editorialize anytime someone says something about climate change that they don't agree with. This has nothing to do with sedition. This has nothing to do with illegal behavior. This is not protecting against child predators or something of that nature. This is a simple public policy debate item that they're now putting warning labels up. And it's one of those, people don't realize just how precious these freedoms of speech are until they start taking them all away. And President Trump, I think, said it best. We said, look, if they're willing to kick me off, they're willing to kick you off. They're willing to do anything. And I think whether we've seen the Dr. Robert Malones, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, people who've been kicked off recently, this is so far beyond. This has nothing to do with January 6th. This has nothing to do with President Trump. They're putting the pedal to the metal, and they're making the conscious decision, meaning big tech, to say there's upwards of 45% of the United States they don't want on their platforms. And it's not just the US. You take a look what's happening in Brazil, in France, so many other countries. This is a global issue. In fact, Sarah, one of the things that really jumped out at me this last summer was when Facebook made the announcement that they were going to increase, not decrease, but increase their global anti-misinformation efforts going into 2022. So what were the countries that they targeted? Philippines, Brazil, Colombia, France, even the US. In the midterms, it's all countries with elections. They want to pick the winners and losers, not just in the free speech debate, but even who the leaders are.
That's absolutely true. And countries where we've seen a good majority of the people lean towards conservatism. This isn't just about an idea or a philosophy that is just endemic to the United States. We were supposed to be the beacon of light, and we are. In the idea of it, a beacon of light, so other nations would espouse to be free, would have free markets, would have capitalism where people can build their own life and be proud of themselves and proud of their children, where you weren't stuck in, like the serfdom. Senator Rand Paul, I was listening to him this morning on the radio, and he was talking about his interview with Clay Travis, where they were talking about COVID, and he was talking about very basic scientific information and reports that were out there, and giving his own 2 cents about the vaccines, and just being very scientific. And YouTube removed it. They just removed his entire interview for misinformation. And so they're deciding what we can and cannot know. And that sounds a lot to me like the Empire out of Star Wars. I'm just saying, it does not sound like a democracy or a republic. It just doesn't. How are you going to be able to stand up against that? Okay, look, I know President Trump is building this new media empire. I love Devin Nunes. I think you're fantastic. You're doing this work. Will GETTR, will this new media empire, whatever it is, be strong enough so that they can't be deplatformed? I mean, will they have to rely on Google? Will they have to rely on Amazon? Will they still be in control of all of our advertising, our servers? Or is there some magical person out there with deep pockets, like Elon Musk or someone, that could create like a whole new platform? That's just or a whole new internet. I don't know. How can we protect ourselves against this?
Great question. So we have redundancies at every step in our operation. So even if someone decided to not want to partner with us, we'd be fine to continue. There's only one place where, in full disclosure, I'll say that there is no such thing as a backup, and that's the Apple App Store. If you get kicked off of the Apple App Store, then because they have a closed environment, then there's no way to get around that. They decide what apps are on and not. And a lot of people don't realize this, that say with Google, if you have an Android, if you have a Google phone or Samsung Galaxy or such, you can go right to a website and download an app. You don't have to go through the App Store to go and get it. Apple is a closed environment, and they've shown that they're willing to. They kicked off Fortnite when Fortnite was the biggest video game on the planet, and they did over a fees dispute. They kicked them off. That's the one place where there is no such thing as a redundancy. Every other step of the process, we have redundancies and backups to go and do it. Now, fortunately for us, the vast majority of our users, not just the US domestically, but also internationally, do use Androids. I mean, I personally have an iPhone. I want to stay on the iPhone. Right. Absolutely. I want it to be available to everybody. But I think that because we have a smart and robust moderation system, the fact that we do make sure that we prohibit illegal content or pornography or things that would endanger children.
Which, by the way, Twitter does not all the time, because I go on my Twitter account. I don't even know what's happening there sometimes. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, report, because that cannot be a legit Twitter account, right? Nobody can totally keep themselves immune from somebody who wants to hack, right? Or somebody who is an expert at this, right? I mean, you can do your best and show good faith that you are doing your best, right? But you can't be completely immune to people's thoughts, right? You're not the police. You're not the thought police.
Right, exactly. And so since we have strong, what I'd say are community guidelines to make sure this will be the place where freedom of speech and political speech in particular is always going to be protected, we do keep the environment safe, and obviously not just for the US, for people around the world. So I do think we're being good partners, but if for some reason companies decided to not want to work with us or have some sort of split, like I said, we have redundancies every place except the Apple App Store. But you raise a really good point overall, especially with President Trump announcing his platform that we'll see coming out, whether it's later this spring or early summer. Devin Nunes said it might be toward the end of Q1, but it also might be in Q2. What this is really about is challenging big tech. And quite frankly, this shouldn't be a question of, say, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube against everybody else. This should be a matter of, we need to decentralize a lot of this information sharing, make sure that there are multiple places to do it. And again, just the same way that you have multiple channels on television, you should have choice when it comes to your social media, when it comes to other platforms as well. Because I also think, too, that's dangerous when you put all of that power in the hands of these couple of Silicon Valley billionaires.
We've seen it. We've actually seen it. There's no reason to even hypothetically say, oh, well, if we have, 2 or 3 companies, this is what could happen to our democracy. And I agree with you. I think decentralizing it, breaking up monopolies in a sense, by the free market, which is what we are, a free market. And hopefully our lawmakers will back that too, right? Because when it goes to Congress, we don't expect perfection, but we expect them to abide by the law, to look at the facts. I remember how hard it was with even under President Trump when, they were trying to bring this to the forefront, even in Congress. But, you got Amazon, they've got billions of dollars. You have Facebook. Look at how much money they invested through their nonprofits in the election, right? I mean, it's crazy. You really are doing the right thing by starting now. I think if you wait too long, right, you're going to lose that momentum. Do you think that's why there's this big move and why Devin and everybody's kind of like, okay, we got to get this ball rolling? Yeah, First question. Yeah.
Yeah. We saw what happened in 2020. And the biggest mistake we made in 2020 was not having an alternative platform so we can get the message out and not be shut down or censored or editorialized against throughout the election. And I never would have thought that the big tech companies would have actually gone and deplatformed the sitting president of the United States. Anytime I heard people bring that up, I'd say, you guys are being silly. You're being too inflammatory. There's no way they would kick off a duly and democratically elected president of the United States simply because they disagreed with them or they wanted to take it out on. But they did. And the media sadly went along with it. If that had been a Democrat, if they'd kicked off a Democrat off of a platform, it would have been bloody murder. But since it was President Trump and since they were so triggered, they just wanted him gone. And quite frankly, when Facebook plays that game of whether it's they kick it to their review board, the review board kicks it back, Twitter and Facebook.
The review board, which has actual Chinese citizens on it, by the way. The censor board actually has Chinese citizens on it. I thought that was really interesting. I love that. I love the fact that they do that. It just goes to show you what's happening there. It just goes to show you, and you're right. They should have kicked Adam Schiff off, Nancy Pelosi. There's so many people that need to be just removed if they're using those standards. If they're using standards of lying to the American public, by the way, James Clapper, who should be charged for lying to Congress straight up, right? John Brennan lied to Congress straight up. It's so funny, but you're right. You can't get the truth out the same way to reach all the people if those corporations, if those behemoth, massive, never seen before in the history of mankind, everybody loves to say that, have all the power until somebody says, you know what? This is BS. We're going to get together. We're going to hone in on our resources and we're going to do what all great Americans do, compete against them and make them toast. Because I believe you could build a better platform. Do you believe that? That's what it's going to take. And you're going to need to reach those independents, Jason. You're going to need to reach independents and then those on the left that are just like the old Democrats, you know, like kind of like I was trying to think who would I Manchin. There you go, Manchin. You could reach a Manchin. Yeah, there you go, one guy.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why we started reaching out to as many people who aren't in politics at all, whether they be in athletes or entertainers or people in, again, in sports, people, international musicians, people of that nature, because most people go to social media for one of two reasons. Either they want to go and connect with friends and family, or they want to get breaking news updates, and they want to get real news. They don't want to get necessarily the filtered nonsense that they get from the mainstream media. They want to be able to connect with their friends, express themselves, not worry that some thought police are going to come in and kick them off one way or the other. But so many people, even outside of the partisan, so to speak, or people who wake up saying rah rah Republicans or rah rah Democrats, people are waking up every day and saying the censorship, the discrimination's gone too far. I tell my Democratic friends all the time, just wait, the pendulum is going to swing back. We've seen a little bit inching on it when we talk about, say, like a Nicki Minaj. Then when she got put in digital jail for daring to say that she heard about side effects with some of the vaccines and some of the boosters, they're not going to stop there. The pendulum's going to swing back. And I think many on the left are going to say, thank goodness we have platforms like GETTR as they start to get kicked off by Twitter and Facebook and others.
Right. And you're right about Nicki Minaj, and you're right about the fact that, you know, there are bullies out there. They always talk about bullies. We don't like bullies, but they're the biggest bullies on the block. They bully you into a corner. They ostracize you. You're like left out of the high school clubs. You're no longer included. It's a horrible, it's a cancel culture, horrible feeling. I want to ask you about one thing that we're going to clear the air. We're going to clear it up right here on the Sara Carter Show, the Joe Rogan issue, because he really did. I mean, he is getting slammed left and right on Twitter. He's getting slammed on YouTube. You know, he is like probably one of the biggest podcasts in the country, if not the biggest, I think, next to Dan Bongino and me. No, I'm just joking. Dan's a great, I love Dan. I love, you know, and Joe. What happened between GETTR and Joe Rogan? What was going on? What was the problem?
So we're very blessed that Joe decided to join the platform following Dr. Malone and Marjorie Taylor Greene being deplatformed. And Joe was on. I know he posted at least once. I'm not sure how many times. And then he had a couple of comments that were a little more critical on his show about 2 points in particular. One, the front end of our engineering got a little bit ahead of our back end. And so we started posting the total followers, because we'll have it very shortly where you post on GETTR and then it cross posts and also appears on Twitter. So you'll never have to go back to Twitter again, even if you don't want to lose your followers or people that are tracking you. And so the engineers were showing the combined total, because again, we're about 2 weeks away from having that. So what we did to easily rectify that was we split it out, said here are the GETTR specific users, then here are the total users. So then once you opt into that and start doing the cross posting, then you can see what your total reach is. So we handled that very simply. And then someone, probably one of the marketplace competitors, probably one of the people who are a little bit envious that we've passed them already in just the 6 months we've been around. We're up to 4.5 million users on the platform. Told Joe, or tried to push to Joe, that there's some sort of CCP influence within GETTR, which is absolutely silly. We're supported by 2 international investment firms, one that's based in London, one that's based in New Jersey. This is who is funding GETTR early on. We'll move toward a public offering in a couple of years here, at which point all the details get laid out as you would with an IPO. So we have 2 international investment funds. There's no mainland China. There's no CCP influence, any of that. One of the people who's I'd say a supporter, not someone who has a direct financial tie and not someone who has a direct managerial aspect, is Miles Guo, a gentleman who's here in the U.S. on political asylum, who literally had a #1 song on Apple iTunes called "Take Down the CCP." And so if you want to say that someone took a song to #1 called "Take Down the CCP," I mean, pretty, there's no wiggle room on that. I mean, it's "Take Down the CCP" has a catchy beat. It's easy to dance to. But I think that's more of a reflection that some of our marketplace competitors just a little cranky that we've passed them. So I had a good conversation with one of Joe's producers. I think that we have the air cleared on both of those 2 points. But I'm glad you gave me an opportunity to talk about it, because people should know. Literally, our mission here is to bring lightness to dark, to bring freedom and democracy to places where they don't have it. And even when I was asking our shareholders who invested money in the company at the beginning, if it comes down to a battle of, say, we might be able to get into this country, but we're going to have to play nice with, say, for example, the CCP. So what's more important, you making the 10 million or 100 million or taking down the CCP? They said, 100 times out of 100, take down the CCP. So that's kind of our mission that I've had pretty direct conversations on as well.
I'm grateful that you also were able to discuss this on the show and that you were able to clarify that, because I think that is important. I think it's really difficult, and it's got to be extraordinarily difficult for you. It's extraordinarily difficult, I know, for a lot of CEOs that I know and people when you're dealing with China, because China plays a huge role in our world. Apple products, right? Let's Amazon, Twitter, everybody. It seems like it doesn't matter if you're Mrs. Buttersworth. I don't know if you're Walmart. It doesn't matter. China plays a role in it and we've seen that. We've seen that with the supply chain issues. We've seen it in the United States when President Trump was working diligently for America First policies, but was able to keep that kind of face in the front with China and even with North Korea. I always love how he played hardball in the back and he gave them a lot of kudos in the front, right? It was almost like the art of war, I would have to say. President Trump was brilliant at that. And he was brilliant at kind of doing that and manipulating those situations, not leading us into a war like Joe Biden. I don't know how to thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. I'm going to leave the last words up to you. Tell everyone who's listening now why they should join GETTR, why it's important to be a part of a new platform and really make it grow, particularly before 2022 and 2024.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And our goal, simply put, and to kind of let me steal a phrase from my former boss, we're trying to make social media fun again. We're trying to make it so when you open up that GETTR app each morning and see what's going on in the world, you're actually excited to go and look. You're not thinking about the misery and the cesspool that is on Twitter, some of these other platforms. We're trying to make social media fun again. I think we have a great, engaging, inviting platform that's not only just as good, but probably better than what they're putting out there for Twitter and for Facebook. I think the user experience is great. And this is the time to make sure that your free speech is going to be backed up and protected. You don't want to wait until you get kicked off of Twitter or Facebook to say, how do I start building a following on a platform that's going to allow me to speak freely? If you join GETTR, whether it's at the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, GETTR, even go to the website, GETTR.com, you can start building your following right now, and freedom is just a click away.
That's right. Are we going to be free in 2024? You think he's going to run?
I do think he's going to run. I do think he's going to run. So the 45/47, aka Donald J. Trump. I do believe so, but you know what? I don't think it's going to be against Sleepy Joe. I think it's going to be against maybe a California Governor Gavin Newsom or Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Somebody like, I don't think it'll be Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I think that things have gotten so bad, they're only going to get worse with the two of them, that I can't see Joe running for re-election. Harris is a little bit nuts. I could see her trying, but I think the toothpaste is out of the tube on that one. People realize that, man, there's not much there. There's a reason she dropped out before getting no votes in any of the primaries.
Wow, you are going to have some fun come 2024, especially if it's Gavin Newsom or Whitmer. I'd be getting those commercials ready right now. Have you been to California lately?
Oh no, California's it's a hellhole with a nice view of the beach. And so, but as long as you don't turn around and look inland, as long as you're just looking out at the water, it's great. The rest of it, not so much. But we're going to be here to make sure people have the right to express themselves either way.
Thank you so much, Jason. You're awesome. I could talk to you for hours. Everybody get out there, join GETTR. It's the way to do it. This is why the American dream exists, so that we can have other companies out there to compete and really build something strong and build a company that can challenge these social media giants that are acting like fascists. Thanks. I hope you come back, Jason.
Thank you.
Before we go any further, I want to talk to you about the stock market. You all know how volatile the stock market is. Mainly because we have an administration that is out of control, looking to increase our taxes, pandering to China, and mislead you about inflation. It's scary, actually. It's far worse than the few mean tweets that came out of Donald Trump's time in office, right? So Universal Coin and Bullion is offering a 1 ounce pure silver tribute coin. This is to honor better financial times to America's 45th president, Donald J. Trump, and it's going to be at their cost. You'll get a pure 1 ounce silver coin honoring former President Trump at the same price Universal Coin buys it from their vendors. Think about that. Throughout history, silver and gold have been a hedge against inflation and a guaranteed asset you can turn to when times are uncertain. And with Biden and Harris in office, the uncertainty seems to be getting worse, folks. Diversify your portfolio and add silver, pure silver Trump coin to your investments now. And guess what? It's postage free. Call 1-800-UCB-GOLD. That's 1-800-UCB-GOLD. Their professional staff, led by America's gold expert, Dr. Mike Fulgens, are waiting for you to call at 1-800-UCB-GOLD to get your pure silver President Trump tribute coin at dealer's cost. Okay, so Jason Miller is heading to the beautiful state of Florida tomorrow, and I think Florida has one of the best governors in our entire United States. I mean, I love Texas. Governor Greg Abbott, I think, has been great for the state of Texas, but let's say it again. I mean, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has been outspoken. He has been fighting for his constituents, and now he is blasting the Biden administration basically for, can you believe this? Cutting off monoclonal antibody infusions, which, by the way, the Biden administration had threatened him with before. But now the Biden administration is just going to take it away, take it from all Americans, not give you that choice. He says with all the problems Biden is having, he's focused on this.
You have so many problems with this administration. You look at inflation spiraling out of control, and yet they're doing things to fuel it. You look at the southern border, which has been a total disaster and continues to be to this day. You look what's happening in the gathering storm abroad, whether it's Russia, China, America's adversaries. You have huge, huge problems going on. You have ineffective COVID restrictions and mandates that are being championed in other states that are inhibiting our supply chain and contributing to economic problems. So you have all these issues that could be addressed. And so what do they choose to do with their time? They choose to pull the rug out of elderly patients, most of whom, almost all of them, have been vaccinated, and say you don't have access to this treatment. So we're going to fight back against this because this is just wrong. This is not the way, that you help people. And our view is people have a right to access these treatments, and to revoke it on this basis is just fundamentally wrong, and we're going to fight back.
That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable to me that this is happening. I think Ron DeSantis' speech is one that everyone should hear. You should really listen to what he's doing, because this is a vindictive administration that is just trying to hammer Ron DeSantis and others at the expense of the American people. There is no doubt in my mind that that is what's going on here. Even worse, you guys, a Boston hospital is refusing a heart transplant for a man who desperately needs one. He has 2 children, all because he is not vaccinated. This is a young man. He is 31 years old. A Boston hospital, Brigham and Women's Hospital, is refusing to give this father of 2 a heart transplant because he does not believe in the vaccine. I don't understand this at all. How did we come to this? How did we come to this? His name is DJ Ferguson. He is, I think we should get all the support we can out there for him. I think we should write this Boston's hospital. We should call them Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. We should call them. We should say, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this, because he doesn't, it's not like he's sitting there drinking every single day and smoking cigarettes. He just doesn't want to get the vaccine. He should have the right to make that decision for himself. He should have that right. Right here in this story by CBS, it says Brigham and Women's released a statement saying, like many other transplant programs in the United States, the COVID-19 vaccine is one of several vaccines and lifestyle behaviors required for transplant candidates in the Mass General Brigham system in order to create both the best chance for a successful operation and also the patient's survival after transplantation. That is such BS. Give him his heart. These are heartless people. These are people that like control. These are people that want to control everything around them. And they're not doing it because they care about him. They are doing it because they are in control. And that's all this is about. I'm Sara Carter. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. Remember, you can go to saracarter.com. That is saracarter.com, where you can get the latest and greatest stories. You'll see my exclusive interview with the Border Patrol official, what we played earlier in the podcast. You can hear the whole thing there at saracarter.com. I also have some other breaking stories on there. Great writers, a great website, and sign up while you are there for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Listen to Jason Miller, what he was saying. He was saying the truth about what is happening in our nation. Guys, if we don't start fighting back, if we don't start doing things the right way, we're going to lose our ability to speak freely. We are going to lose our nation. We are going to lose those founding principles that make us so great. Go to saracarter.com, sign up for that email. I hope that Jason Miller comes back on our show. I look forward to watching GETTR grow. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Today, I'm joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of the Association for Mature American Citizens. It's also known as AMAC. Explain the differences. What makes AMAC superior to AARP beyond the fact that we don't agree with their leftist ideology?
What makes us so unique is that we truly do take our marching orders from our membership. Before we go out and about and advocate for any issue, we do consult with our AMAC members, and we do that through a variety of ways. But that really makes us very different, where AARP stood in support of Obamacare, even though their membership was largely against. AMAC will stand in support of our membership. In addition, Sara, we offer benefits. We offer benefits just like the AARP. Ours are better because we offer choices. For example, you can call AMAC for your Medicare, and we're not going to do a one-size-fits-all one plan. The AARP endorses United Healthcare, whereas AMAC has its own trusted in-house licensed insurance advisors that are working for AMAC, stand for our mission of faith, family, and freedom, and then go about offering real choices. We do a lot of things like that that I think make us very different and make us, quite frankly, better.
Rebecca, thanks so much for being with me today. I'm honored to have you and AMAC as a sponsor for the Sara Carter Show. You know, for more information, folks, visit amac.us/Carter.